This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Dozens killed and buildings destroyed as tornadoes slam through 6 U.S. states. Libya delays the candidate list for elections scheduled in less than 2 weeks. And South Africa holds a state memorial for late President de Klerk in Cape Town. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also ahead on the program. Omicron spreads in South Africa, but severe cases remain low. And in sports, Max Verstappen beats Lewis Hamilton in the final lap to claim the world title. Well, let's start in the United States, where at least 100 people are feared dead after a number of tornadoes slammed their way through several U.S. states. The vast majority of the deaths were in Kentucky, many of them workers at a candle factory. Kentucky's governor says the series of tornadoes is the most destructive in the state's history. Meanwhile, at least 6 people died at an Amazon warehouse in Illinois. Well, let's bring you the latest on this now. We're joined by Dan Williams from Mayfield in Kentucky. Dan, of course, Kentucky, one of the hardest hit states by this series of tornadoes. What is the latest situation now on the ground?
Yeah, as you say, Mayfield, where I'm standing, really very much the epicenter of this, following this series of tornadoes on Friday. You can see behind me just some of the destruction that was caused, but I have to say, just block after block here of houses, of businesses completely and utterly destroyed. Now, the death toll has risen here this morning. That figure now stands at 94 people, but as you say, that figure is expected to rise significantly in the coming days to more than 100 people. The candle factory on the outskirts of the town, that really is a key focus. Some 40 people were rescued, but some 60 people were missing, and we know that there has not been another survivor rescued since Saturday. Now, the President, Joe Biden, has declared this a disaster. That means that emergency aid can be very quickly sent here. We know that the emergency agency FEMA are on site here as well. And you can probably see behind me on the main road in and out of Mayfield, all sorts of different construction machinery being brought in, that continuing the cleanup efforts here. But of course, the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, he says that he thinks it's unlikely now that there will be any further survivors. Really, it's just a complete scene of devastation here, and the community very much trying to come to terms with the events of Friday evening. Very,
very sad indeed. Of course, Dan, we are seeing a little bit of that destruction behind you in that rubble. Talk to us a little bit more about the extent of destruction and what the next steps will be for the state's governor or the leadership of Kentucky.
Well, certainly for as far as the eye can see, really, you have block after block after block of just these buildings, houses, completely and utterly ripped apart. Rubble, you have bricks just lying now in the streets, the trees surrounding the town just completely covered with all sorts of debris as well. It's a kind of almost a post-apocalyptic kind of movie scene from something like War of the Worlds. It really is horrific to be here to witness this complete and utter destruction. We were just speaking, in fact, to one of the homeowners here. They're going through their house, collecting what belongings they can, because they know that that house is unfit and it will be ripped down. So they're just going in, trying to save a few belongings before they're ordered out of this town. And you also have to know that the electric power lines, they're down. You have also telephone poles just ripped in half. So it's a scene of one that I've never really witnessed before, it has to be said, of just a town having been completely ripped apart following this series of some 30 or so tornadoes that came through here and just left complete and utter devastation in its wake.
Well, thank you so much for that. That's Dan Williams live for us in Mayfield, Kentucky. Now let's go to Italy, where at least 3 people have died and 6 others remain missing after several buildings collapsed following a gas explosion in the south of the country. 2 people were saved from the rubble. Rescue workers and police are on the scene. An official said the gas leak seems to have come from a network of pipes in the area and seems to have accumulated, and this may have been ignited by the use of the lift. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa paid tribute to the country's last apartheid president and former deputy president of the new South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, in Cape Town on Sunday. President Ramaphosa said it was time for South Africans to release de Klerk so that he could rest in peace. Renelle Delcam has more.
Former Deputy President F.W. de Klerk died at his home in Cape Town after a battle with cancer at the age of 85 just over a month ago. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate was laid to rest during a private family cremation. Mourners, including the former deputy president's family and South Africans across the political spectrum, gathered for an official memorial service at the Grote Kerk in Cape Town. President Cyril Ramaphosa said many people of all races in South Africa and around the world had contributed to the freedom South Africans enjoyed today, and praised de Klerk for the role he had played in the new South Africa.
F.W. de Klerk was born of the African soil, because he was born here. And it is the African soil to the African soil that he has now returned. And it is here, within the warm embrace of this African soil, that he shall forever remain. I'd like to call upon all of us, whether we agreed with him or not, to now release him so that he can be at peace.
President Ramaphosa remembered de Klerk as a worthy opponent with whom he'd often exchanged strong words. He said de Klerk had had the courage of his convictions, and while he acknowledged de Klerk's contribution to a democratic South Africa, he said his legacy remained contested.
Many wondered, why do we want to have a memorial at the state level for F.W. de Klerk? And we said we will have it because he is one person who played an important role in the evolution of our new democracy, whether we like it or not.
Many people take it for granted that we had a transition to democracy and constitutionalism. It was not the inevitable outcome at the time. In fact, the inevitable outcome was a deepening civil war. And F.W. de Klerk deserves the recognition with Nelson Mandela for taking South Africa out of that dead end and into a democratic and constitutional future.
A representative of the Western Cape government said hopefully F.W. de Klerk's passing would encourage South Africans to recommit themselves to working towards a united South Africa. Renelle Delcam, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
And to Libya now. The country's election commission says it will not publish a list of presidential candidates until it settles some pending legal matters. The announcement to postpone the publishing of the list leaves almost no time to hold elections scheduled for December 24th. The stalemate takes place amidst legal chaos whereby different courts have issued contradicting verdicts about whether some candidates can run for office or not. The Commission admits that significant delays could increase the risk of derailing the wider peace process in Libya, but says a disputed poll conducted without a clear agreement on rules or eligible candidates could pose immediate dangers to instability. This comes amid growing jostling over the rules and legal basis of a vote aimed at ending a decade of instability. Now, earlier we spoke to Dr. Mustafa Faturi. He says that postponing the December election will be a big disappointment to Libyans. Let's take a listen.
First of all, it will be very huge public disappointment, and the people, generally speaking, will have far less trust in the authorities as well as in the mission of the United Nations, who has been mediating the conflict and who has successfully reached this point with its help, of course, whereby we will go for public elections, and that's the first thing. The second thing, there is a high possibility of renewed conflict. However, it might not be straight away after the 24th of December. We will see what will happen then, and then there's also the possibility that further political feuding between the different parties in the country, especially in the western and eastern parts of the dividing line, if you like, there will be more political feuding and more delays. If the elections are postponed, as they are, there's a lot of speculations around that point right now, and there's the possibility that they could be postponed until March or February next year. I doubt it will happen that way. If they are postponed, they will postpone most likely for a longer period of time, and that will open the door for more difficulties and more political disagreements. And we have to wait and see what the new United Nations Secretary General Special Advisor in Libya, Mrs. Stephanie Williams, who just came back to the role, and she was the woman who actually devised the whole thing that got us to the election. We have to see what kind of magic she comes up and bring Libyans back to the election date, if they agree a new one. But it will be a huge public disappointment for everybody in Libya.
Climate change and other factors are exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in Somalia. The World Food Programme official in the country, Lara Foss, warns the ongoing drought will cause a significant famine by next May.
Somalia is experiencing its third failed rainy season. And this evolving drought situation is particularly of concern because already we had 3.5 million people in what we call an acute phase of food insecurity. It looks like those numbers could even reach as high as 4.6 million in May. This is 30% of the Somali population.
Well, the WFP's Lara Foss went on to say that 1 million children under the age of 5 are malnourished. A fifth are in a potentially life-threatening condition. Nearly 3 weeks ago, the Somali government declared a state of emergency and appealed for international assistance. The WFP has provided aid to local residents, mainly for malnourished children and pregnant mothers. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. Coming up, Omicron spreads in South Africa, but severe cases remain low. And the G7 warns Russia of massive consequences if Ukraine is attacked. As more countries continue to record cases of the new COVID-19 variant Omicron, South African doctors say there is currently no indication the virus is causing more severe illness, even though it is spreading faster than the Delta variant. Now, according to South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases, only about 30% of those hospitalized with COVID-19 in recent weeks have been seriously ill. That's less than half the rate during the first weeks of previous pandemic waves. Well, medics are, however, warning that the Omicron variant has the potential to overwhelm hospitals as it spreads faster. In South Africa, where the variant was first detected, health professionals have reported 17,000 cases on Sunday. Earlier, we spoke to Dr. Sabelo Hadebe, a senior lecturer and immunologist at the University of Cape Town, for more.
It started mainly in Pretoria, so Gauteng province, and cases have been going up there quite quickly, and it's obviously spreading to other provinces as well. I mean, just today we reported about 17,000 new cases. So it is spreading fast. I mean, it's doubling every 2 to 3 days. But what is encouraging at the moment is that it doesn't seem to be we don't get severe cases. So I think that's promising, but obviously it also means it has a potential to overwhelm hospitals. So that's essentially what we know so far. It is setting the world back a bit in terms of handling the pandemic. I mean, if you look at the latest data on the vaccine effectiveness of vaccines, so what we know right now is that it probably with the new variant, it drops to about 35% in people that are fully vaccinated, so 2 doses of Pfizer. So that is discouraging, but I guess it also means that, you know, if you look at countries like the UK, they've had 3 plans. I think it was Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. And they're having to really change and review almost everything because cases are going up and hospitals are also struggling. So I mean, these are countries that also have, you know, almost full vaccination. So yeah, it is setting the world back a bit in some ways. But I mean, I guess we always knew that variants were always going to come. We just had to be ready. I think the vaccine inequity is a real big world problem. You know, Africa, I think less than 10% is vaccinated. So that's, I mean, we're not going to reach those targets or vaccinating 40% of the population by end of this year. And probably, I mean, a lot of countries probably towards 2023, that's when they might be able to vaccinate at least to the first dose. So you know, if we're talking boosters, we're really far ahead in terms of the conversation that we should be having in Africa of actually getting vaccines to give people that first jab. So I think the countries that are holding vaccines, they should fast track that. I mean, and give us the vaccines to be able to vaccinate people, at least give them the first dose.
An Air China plane carrying Chinese COVID vaccines has arrived in Nicaragua as the country battles a wave of infections. Earlier this week, China and Nicaragua re-established diplomatic ties after the Central American country broke off relations with Taiwan. The two sides signed a communique in which Nicaragua acknowledged the One China policy, which states that Taiwan is a part of China. China has promised to assist Nicaragua in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic and promote bilateral cooperation. G7 foreign ministers have delivered a strong communique on Russian military activity on the Ukrainian border and Iran over nuclear weapons. On the second day of the conference in Liverpool, ministers from ASEAN and other countries were invited to join in person or by video link to discuss a wider agenda. Andrew Wilson reports.
Gestures of unity were a crucial element to this gathering that some ministers are now calling G7+, as delegates from ASEAN and other countries joined the talks on the second day. There were warm words and greetings on display between Japan and France, between the United States and Italy.
Thank you very much for the Summit of Democracies.
Good evening, everyone. And the US and Australia, with references to the Quad group they share with India and Japan, and AUKUS, the Australia-US-UK security deal.
Whether it is the Quad, whether it is AUKUS, and the concrete that is the Australia-US alliance for us underpins all of that effort. Some of the challenges.
Although the bilateral with the UK Foreign Minister and her French counterpart was a little more tense, with Britain and France still at odds over migrants and fishing licenses. But by and large, there is broad agreement over immediate security issues like Ukraine.
And what we've shown this weekend is that the world's largest economies are united. We've sent a powerful signal to our adversaries and our allies. We've been clear that any incursion by Russia into Ukraine would have massive consequences for which there would be a severe cost.
And on the faltering nuclear deal with Iran.
This is the last chance, and it is vital that they do so. We will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, and it is vital that they come to the table and are serious about the negotiations.
That left the agenda free to discuss more general issues of global health, Indo-Pacific trade, vaccines and gender equality with the wider lineup of delegates. The introduction of a new German foreign ministry team will have been significant this weekend as well. Even with Angela Merkel in retirement, Germany remains key to European politics, and it takes over the rotating G7 presidency in a few weeks' time. But the ground has been laid. The US has already threatened Russia with sanctions and exclusion from the international banking payment system. It's likely that Britain and the US will focus next on Russia's gas pipeline to Germany and put pressure on Berlin to move away from Russian energy. Andrew Wilson, CGTN, Liverpool.
Israel's Prime Minister travels to the United Arab Emirates on Sunday. Naftali Bennett is expected to meet Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan on Monday. It is the highest level meeting since the countries formalized relations last year. The two leaders will discuss deepening ties with an emphasis on economic issues. The trip comes amid heightened regional tensions as world powers try to renew a nuclear deal with Iran. Let's take a short break. Your sports news up next. Coming up, Max Verstappen beats Lewis Hamilton in the final lap to claim the world title.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start with motorsports now, where Red Bull's Max Verstappen has won his first Formula One title at the finale in Abu Dhabi. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton appeared in control of the race and on course for the title until a late safety car. The race was restarted with one lap to go, with Verstappen on fresh tyres and Hamilton on old ones, and the Dutchman swept to win the race. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz closed out the podium places. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes took first place, with Red Bull coming in second, followed by Ferrari in third place.
It's unbelievable. I mean, throughout the whole race I kept fighting, and then of course that opportunity in the last lap, it's incredible. I'm still having a cramp, but it's insane.
Firstly, a big congratulations to Max and to his team. I think we did an amazing job this year. My team, everyone back at the factory, all the men and women we have and here worked so hard this whole year. It's been the most difficult of seasons, and I'm so proud of them, so grateful to be a part of the journey with them. And yeah, we gave it everything. This last part of the season, we gave it absolutely everything, and we never gave up, and that's the most important thing.
And to the Arab Cup now. Algeria got past Morocco on penalties in a tightly played quarter-final match in Doha. After a goalless opening half, Algeria grabbed their first lead following a VAR review that awarded a penalty kick, which was converted by Yassine Brahimi in the 62nd minute. Morocco wasted little time, equalizing after a tripping foul resulted in